The compliment that changed everything. The sun was setting on the dusty plains of planet Veralis, a strange but beautiful world, where tall grass shimmered with a silver tint and the wind carried the scent of warm minerals and wild flowers. Jake adjusted the straps of his field pack as he walked alone toward the communication relay tower, one of the many outposts scattered near the border of the Volari territory. Jake was just a technician, nothing special. Really, he fixed antennas, rerouted signals, and made sure the systems didn't overheat in the dry wind. But today his team had assigned him to check the transmission tower closest to the Volari region, a quiet area known for rare but peaceful encounters with the towering alien species. Volari were huge, standing 3 times taller than an average human, with skin like marble and eyes that reflected the colors of the sky. Most humans found them intimidating, but they had never shown aggression toward the human settlers. Instead, they kept their distance, watching quietly from the edge of the forests and hills. As Jake reached the tower, he noticed someone already there, sitting on a large stone beside the structure. It was a Volari female, tall, calm, her long limbs folded neatly. As she watched the wind blow across the grass, her silver hair moved gently in the breeze, her skin glowing faintly under the twin suns. Jake paused, unsure what to do, but he had been trained not to show fear, so he walked forward and offered a small wave. She turned her head slowly and nodded back, her expression neutral but not unfriendly. Jake smiled awkwardly and said, just to break the silence, "Hey, you look nice today." The words left his mouth without much thought. It was something he said all the time to people back at the base, just a habit, really polite, friendly, easy. Volari female blinked slowly, then stood up to her full height, towering over him, her face unreadable for a moment. Then she said, "Thank you, little one," and turned away, walking calmly into the trees. Jake stood there scratching his head, wondering if he had done something wrong, or if maybe she didn't understand human language very well. But since she didn't seem angry, he shrugged and went about fixing the relay, climbing up the support beam and tightening the signal node. By the time he returned to base, the sun had dipped low, casting orange shadows across the barracks. His friend Liam met him outside, looking curious. "Dude, were you near the Volari lands today?" "Yeah," Jake replied. "Just fixed the tower, ran into one of them. Big lady, long hair, quiet, kind of pretty actually." Liam's eyes widened. "You didn't say anything weird, did you?" "No, just told her she looked nice." Why? Liam froze, his face going pale. "Jake, what's wrong?" Jake asked, now confused. Liam grabbed his arm and pulled him behind the combs, building his voice a harsh whisper. "Do you know what that means to them? Saying that to a Volari female is like proposing marriage." Jake laughed, at first thinking it was a joke, but Liam wasn't smiling. He looked dead serious. "I'm not making this up. Man, we had cultural briefings, remember? You just triggered a bonding custom. She probably thinks you want to be her mate." Jake's stomach dropped. "That can't be right. It was just a compliment, not to them," Liam said, rubbing his temples. "I heard stories about something like this happening before. The Volari take promises seriously. If she took your words that way, it's a big deal." Just then, the base intercom crackled. "Jake, report to command center. Immediately." "Repeat, technician." Jake, report to command. His legs felt like jelly as he walked into the main tent, where the commander stood, arms crossed next to a holo screen showing a map with blinking markers. "Sir," Jake said, trying to stay calm. "What's going on?" The commander sighed. "Son, we just got a message from the Volari. They say one of their own has accepted a mating offer from a human named Jake. They want to begin the bonding process." Jake nearly choked. "Bonding process, sir? I didn't propose anything. I swear it was a misunderstanding. I just told her she looked nice." The commander nodded. "I believe you, but they don't see it that way, and we can't afford a diplomatic crisis over this, not with everything else going on." "So, what do I do?" Jake asked, panic rising in his chest. "Do I apologize? Do I hide? Do I run?" The commander looked at him seriously. "You'll have to meet with her again, face to face. Talk this out respectfully and carefully. They don't take offense easily, but they take honor seriously. If she believes your words were real, then she might already consider you her chosen." Later that evening, as the suns dipped below the jagged hills, casting golden light across The Horizon Jake stood outside the base waiting. A small transport pod arrived, but instead of soldiers or officials, the one who stepped out was her, the Volari female from earlier. Her silver eyes locked on his as she approached, her movement smooth and graceful. She stopped a few feet from him and lowered herself to one knee, a gesture of balance among her people. Jake had read that in the guidebook. She spoke softly. I am called Lura. I accept your words. I offer you my trust and welcome your spirit beside mine. Jake's mouth went dry. He didn't know what to say. Part of him wanted to scream that this was all a huge mistake, but another part of him saw something else in her eyes. Not anger, not confusion, but sincerity. She had taken his words to heart, and now he was standing at the center of a cultural storm he never meant to start. Behind him, Liam whispered, "Bro, what did you do?" Jake couldn't answer because deep down he didn't even know anymore. And in that moment, as the wind picked up again across the plains, Jake realized that nothing about his life was going to be simple ever again. He had said one simple line, just being polite, but now the fate of human Volari relations might depend on how he handled the next few days, and the Giantess before him was waiting for his answer. A cultural catastrophe. Jake stood frozen, the air around him dry and heavy, his eyes locked with Lura's as she knelt before him, her silver hair moving slightly in the breeze. The Giantess had not come in anger or confusion. She had come with calm and purpose. Her voice was soft but clear when she spoke again. I have informed my elders. Your intention is honored. We shall begin the joining steps. Jake swallowed hard, his mind spinning. He never expected a simple compliment to become a proposal, and now he stood at the edge of something far bigger than himself. He raised a hand nervously, trying to explain, but before any words could come, the commander's voice came from behind him. Technician Jake, step back. We need to handle this carefully. Lura rose to her full height and turned to face the commander. She gave a respectful nod and then walked back toward her waiting transport pod, her expression unreadable as she left. Without another word, Jake turned toward the commander, who looked more tired than angry. Son, we are in a difficult situation. Do you understand the meaning of what just happened? Jake rubbed the back of his neck. Yeah, I think so. I complimented her. And now she thinks we're getting married. The commander nodded slowly, more or less, to their people. Such words are sacred promises, and she responded as if you made a true offer. Jake followed the commander into the main tent, where a group of officers and diplomats stood around a hollow table showing a map of the Volari region. One of the diplomatic officers spoke. We received a message from the Volari Council. They are preparing for the first meeting between families. They see this as a celebration, not a conflict. They even sent a list of ceremonial gifts. Jake sat down hard on a bench, trying to process it all. How is this real? I didn't mean anything by it. I was just being polite, the officer replied. Intent does not always equal impact, especially with alien cultures. The Volari have waited a long time to form bonds with humanity. This will be their first human-mate union, and they want it to be peaceful and respected. Another officer added, we cannot simply back out without risking offense and insult. This could cause the Volari to pull away from the treaty, or worse, feel humiliated. Jake stood again, pacing the room. So what are my options? Just go through with it. Just marry her. The commander raised a hand. No one is forcing anything. But if you back out, it has to be done with care. You will meet her again and speak clearly. Explain your side with respect. The Volari will listen, but they do not forget dishonor easily. Later that evening, Jake was brought to a quiet meeting area outside the base, where a large flat stone served as a neutral ground between human and Volari territory. He waited under the stars, nervous, sweating, pacing until a shadow moved in the distance, and Lura approached alone again, her eyes calm, her hands open in peace. She sat on the stone, carefully making herself smaller so he would not feel overwhelmed. You are troubled, she said gently. Jake sighed and sat across from her. Yeah, I guess I am. I didn't know what my words meant to your people. I didn't understand. Lura tilted her head, watching him closely. In my culture, when one speaks of beauty from the heart, it is a call, a request to bond our spirits. I believed you saw something in me, something true. Jake looked away, unsure how to explain. I think You're kind and strong and yes, beautiful, but I didn't mean to promise anything. I just wanted to be polite, not start something I can't handle. Lura did not look offended. She simply nodded slowly and looked at the stars above. Then I misunderstood. She said softly, I will tell my people there will be no union. Jake's chest tightened, not with relief, but something else, guilt, sadness, maybe even disappointment. Wait, he said, not knowing why. I mean, maybe we should talk more, you and I. I don't know everything about your world, and you don't know mine. Maybe we can understand each other better. Lura turned to him again, her eyes bright in the starlight. That is a path I can walk slowly if you wish. Over the next few days. Quiet, not a single sound but the wind. Jake continued, I still don't know what the future holds. I don't know if I can live as a Valari. I don't know if I can be a mate or a partner in the way your people understand it, but I do know this. Want to find out with you, not because I have to, but because I want to. Lura's eyes blinked slowly, her breath gentle as the field around them seemed to breathe with her. The Valari elders remained still, but their eyes brightened. The human commander exhaled quietly behind Jake. Jake stepped closer until he was just in front of Lura, and then he said something that silenced the entire field completely. I choose youth. Moment held for a long time. Lura slowly rose to her full height, her eyes shining with something more than joy, something deeper. She extended her hand, palm up, a Valari gesture of shared path. Jake reached out, placing his much smaller hand in hers, and for a moment, everything else faded. From the human side came a soft murmur of surprise, then relief. From the Valari side came a single clear chime. One of the elders had struck a ceremonial bell, signaling acceptance and unity. Lura looked down at Jake. You do not walk into a cage, you walk into a bond built on will not force. And I walk with you. Jake nodded, his heart beating with a strange mix of fear and peace. I don't know what comes next, but I want to face it with you. Commander stepped forward now, smiling slightly. You just rewrote the handbook, son. Jake looked at him with a tired laugh. I never read the handbook anyway. That night a quiet celebration was held, not loud, not grand, but meaningful. Both humans and Valari gathered around small fires, sharing stories, music, and soft laughter. There was no dance, no speeches, just presence and peace. Lura and Jake sat side by side near the fire, her shoulder like a wall beside him, her warmth steady like the earth. He leaned back, looking at the stars above, and said softly, you know, I never thought I'd find anything like this. Not here, not like this. Lura looked at him, her voice calm. Sometimes the universe answers with surprise. Jake turned to her. You sure about this? I'm not exactly impressive. Lura's eyes softened. You are steady when confused. You are kind when scared. You see what others miss. That is more than enough. He smiled then, and for the first time in days the weight in his chest began to lift, not because everything was solved, but because it was shared, somewhere in the distance too. Young Valari children were pretending to be humans, walking on their knees and talking in silly high voices. Both sides laughed, not mocking, but enjoying, and in that laughter something began to change. Not just for Jake, not just for Lura, but for all who watched, all who listened. A bridge had formed, and now there was no going back. And Jake, sitting beside the Giantess who now held his hand, gently felt for the first time that maybe, just maybe, this strange place could be home. A new bond. Months passed slowly and peacefully. After the day Jake gave his answer, seasons changed on the alien world, and the silver plains of Veralis bloomed with soft golden flowers. Birds with bright wings returned to the skies, and the wind became warmer, like a soft breath from the stars above. Life did not stop for one choice, but it did shift just a little, and in those small shifts, everything began to grow. Jake now lived in a small human shelter built near the Valari village. It was simple, with only the basics, but he did not spend much time inside. Most of his days were with Lura, walking through the wild fields, learning about her world, or sitting with the Valari elders as they shared old stories of their people, their ancestors, and their dreams. Lura taught Jake how to speak more of their language, not just words but meaning, how tone and rhythm carried deeper layers of truth. He stumbled at first, but she always helped gently, her voice calm, her hands guiding his when he shaped new sounds with his fingers. And lips in return. Jake showed her more of human tools, small machines, simple lights, portable music devices. She found great joy in watching a tiny music box open and play an old human tune. She said it reminded her of river songs from her childhood there. Bond was not fast, it did not explode with sudden fire, but grew like a tree with roots. Slow, deep, and strong. They laughed more often now, sometimes over shared meals, sometimes over silly misunderstandings, like when Jake tried to wear a Volari robe and tripped over the hem, or when Lura tried to sit in a human chair and broke it with one touch. But beneath the laughter there was care, and in that care there was something real and lasting. One evening, as the twin suns zipped low in the sky, Lura and Jake stood together near the memory tree, the same place they had visited during the Steps of Unity. Its golden leaves shimmered above them, glowing softly as the wind moved through them. Lura turned to Jake and asked quietly, "Do you miss your home?" Jake looked at the horizon, thinking for a moment. "I miss parts of it, the stars, the blue of Earth, the smell of rain on metal. But I don't feel lost here anymore. This place, it feels like it chose me, and I chose it back." She nodded slowly, her eyes reflecting the light of the leaves. "I am glad. I feared at first that I held you too tightly, that you stayed because you were caught." Jake shook his head. "You never caught me. You just gave me a reason to stop running." They sat beneath the tree in silence until Lura reached into her robe and pulled out a small crystal. It was shaped like a teardrop and glowed with a soft blue light. "This is a bondstone," she said. "In my people's tradition, it is given to one we trust beyond all others. It does not mean ownership, it means shared path, shared fate." Jake took the stone in his hand, feeling its warmth. It pulsed gently like a small heartbeat. "Are you sure?" Lura smiled gently. "I am already walking beside you. This only marks the journey." Jake looked at her, his heart full not of fear now, but of something heavier and sweeter. "I have nothing fancy to give," he said, "just myself." Lura placed her hand over his, and that is more than enough. News of their union spread slowly across both human and Volari settlements, not with loud noise or drama, but with quiet respect. Humans began to visit Volari markets, sharing tools and stories. Volari began to explore human machines, asking questions and listening with interest. Even the commander, who once worried about disaster, now sent regular messages saying that Jake's choice had opened doors no diplomat ever could. The first human Volari school was planned not far from where Jake lived, and both sides began working together on new farms, energy fields, and learning centers. Jake now helped teach young Volari children how to build small radios and simple solar panels. Lura taught human visitors about Volari history, music, and medicine. They were no longer just a couple. They had become a symbol of two paths joined not by force, but by choice. One night, as they sat watching the stars above, the same stars that once looked down on confusion and fear, Lura turned to Jake, her voice gentle. "Do you remember what you said the first day we met?" Jake laughed. "Of course. I said you looked nice, just being polite, and look where that got me." Lura's smile was wide and warm. "And do you still think I look nice?" Jake looked at her, really looked at the way her eyes held wisdom and warmth, the way her voice held both silence and strength, the way her presence made the world feel less heavy. He reached up, brushing her fingers gently, and said, "I think you look like my future." She leaned closer, resting her forehead against his, a gesture of deep connection among her people, and the stars above blinked softly as if nodding in agreement. Jake closed his eyes and felt the bondstone still warm in his pocket, and in that quiet moment between two breaths, he knew he had found something rare, something few ever find, not just love but home. Jake spent more time with Lura, guided by human and Volari officials trying to bridge the cultural gap. He learned about her people's traditions, about how they built their homes in harmony with nature, how they sang to the earth during harvest, how they believed every word had weight and truth. He saw how Lura was respected among her kind, not because of strength, but because of wisdom and patience. She showed him how they healed wounds with crystals, how they trained animals with music, how they honored even the smallest life. Jake shared his own world, his childhood on a dusty Earth colony, his work with machines, his love for the stars. They walked together through the plains, talking, sometimes laughing, sometimes just silent under the calm. Wide open sky, but not everyone was happy. A few humans in the camp whispered about the weirdness of a human and giantess together. Others feared it would set a dangerous precedent. The commander reminded Jake every choice he made now could affect. Years of diplomacy. Lura never pressured him, never demanded his answer again. She simply spent time with him, offering pieces of her world and asking nothing in return, and slowly, without noticing, Jake began to enjoy those moments, her voice like wind, her stories like old songs, her presence strange, yet comforting. Then one night, as they sat by a small fire, Lura spoke quietly. "I was not chosen often by my own kind. They said I was too quiet, too soft, not fierce enough. I thought I would always be alone until you came and called me beautiful. Even if by mistake, it still made me feel seen." Jake didn't know what to say. Her words touched something deep inside him, something that went beyond culture or language or expectation. He looked at her and saw not a giantess, not an alien, not a diplomatic problem, but someone who felt just as lost and human as he did. Smiled slightly. "Maybe we're both soft. Maybe that's not such a bad thing." And in that quiet moment, under a sky full of stars, the lines between human and Volari began to fade, replaced by something deeper than protocol or mistake, something that might just be the beginning of something real. "Shall I begin with part 3 now?" "You said part 3, 1,000 words. Kaleko, or interesting. Hunachea, or third-person style. Malakaniha, or simple basic English. Ka use Karnahai. Or underline. ChatGPT said, part 3, between two worlds. Title, he just said she looked nice. Now the giantess wants a human mate. Jake woke up early that morning with the sound of soft chimes echoing across the camp. Outside the base walls, the Volari were already setting up for what they called the Steps of Unity, a series of peaceful bonding rituals between their kind and others. Jake had agreed to participate, not as a mate, but as a guest who wished to understand. It was a compromise carefully made by both human and Volari diplomats. The field outside had been transformed overnight. Volari elders shaped smooth stone rings into patterns on the grass. Wide banners made of golden fiber hung from tall wooden arches. Jake watched quietly as the Volari moved with grace and purpose, their silver robes flowing like water. It felt like he had stepped into another world. Lura stood near the center. She was dressed differently today. Her silver hair was braided and looped behind her shoulders, and her robe was decorated with small shimmering stones. She turned as Jake approached, her eyes soft and calm. "You came," she said, a quiet welcome in her voice. Jake gave a small nod. "You said this was about understanding, right? Not about anything else." "Yes," Lura said. "Today we share time, that is all." Jake was led to a wide stone seat across from her. Between them was a small table carved from crystal, where a single glowing orb rested. Lura placed her hand lightly above the orb and looked at him. "In your world," she asked, "what does it mean to share a meal?" Jake smiled. "It means comfort. It means friendship. Sometimes it means family." She nodded. "Here, it means the same." Volari servers brought small trays of food. Some were prepared by humans, others by the Volari. Jake tried a slice of fruit that shimmered with blue light. It tasted like warm honey mixed with mint. Lura watched him, amused, as he tried not to make a face when something sour touched his tongue. "It's strong," he said. "Too strong?" "No," he laughed. "Just new." Lura smiled, and that simple smile made something twist in his chest. This wasn't just learning, it was connection. It was something growing. After the meal, they walked together through the ceremonial gardens. Giant blossoms opened as they passed, sensing the warmth of their steps. Birds with glassy feathers sang high above them. Lura pointed to a tall tree with golden leaves. "This tree blooms only once in 100 years. It is called the memory tree." Jake tilted his head. "Why?" "Because every time it blooms, it remembers those who stood under it before." The light it gives carries their names, their hopes. Jake looked up silent. The tree shimmered in the sun, and for a moment he thought he saw ghost-like shapes in its leaves. Not frightening, but peaceful. "Lura," he said after a while, "why did you really accept my words that day?" She paused. "Because they felt true. I didn't mean them as a proposal. I know that now. But they still felt true." Jake stopped walking. He looked at her, really looked. She was so different from everything he knew. Her world, her customs, even her size. But when she spoke, when she smiled, when she listened, she felt closer than most people he had ever met. "You don't think I'm weak?" he asked. "You fix broken things. You learn what you don't know. You face what scares you. That is not weakness." He let her words settle inside him like soft rain. A group of Volari children approached, their laughter ringing through the air. One of them, small by Volari standards, tugged at Lura's robe. "Is this the human?" she asked. Lura bent down. "Yes, his name is Jake." The child looked up at him, eyes wide. "You are small." Jake smiled. "I get that a lot. Do you love her?" Jake blinked. That's a big question." The child tilted her head. "You said she was beautiful." "That's what my father said before he married my mother." Lura gave Jake a curious glance but said nothing. Jake crouched to the child's level. "Sometimes it takes more than one sentence to understand feelings. I'm still figuring it out." The child seemed satisfied with that and ran off laughing. Jake stood again, and Lura watched him with quiet amusement. "You speak well with the young." "Maybe because I don't try to impress them." They walked again slowly. The sun was starting to dip, turning the sky orange and gold. "Lura," he said, "what happens after today?" "We return to our lives. Just like that." "You may come visit," she said. "You may not. It is your choice. But know this, what you have begun here will stay in memory, whether we continue or not." Jake stopped again. "I don't know what I'm supposed to feel. I came here thinking I would correct a misunderstanding. But now, I don't think it was a mistake." Lura turned fully to face him. "Then what is it?" He searched her face, wondering how someone so different could feel so familiar. "I think it's a beginning." She nodded. "Then let us see where it leads." The ritual day ended with a soft chime. Lura returned to her people. Jake stood at the edge of the garden, watching her silhouette against the falling sun. He didn't have answers. He didn't have plans. But he had something else, a bridge. Forming between two worlds, two people, built not by force or command, but by something honest. A single compliment had brought him here. And now, the next step was his to choose. The decision. The wind was calm as the morning light touched the edges of the valley. The humans and the Volari had both gathered once again, but this time there was no ceremony, no food, no music, only silence and waiting. Today was the final meeting where Jake would decide where he stood with Lura and where he stood between two very different worlds. Jake stood near the center platform made of polished stone. His hands clenched nervously behind his back, his heart beating fast. He could see the Volari elders standing tall near their sacred pillars, their expressions serious, and still the human delegation stood opposite them near the edge of the field. Watching quietly with eyes full of concern and curiosity, the commander stepped beside Jake, his voice low. "You don't have to do anything you don't want to, but whatever you say today, it will shape more than just your future." Jake nodded slowly. "I know, sir. I just wish I had more time." From the far side of the field, Lura appeared walking with calm steps, her robe flowing behind her, her hair brushed neatly back, her eyes steady and unreadable. She carried nothing in her hands, no weapons, no gifts, just herself, as if that alone was enough. She stopped a short distance from Jake and lowered herself to one knee, as Volari tradition demanded in moments of truth. Her voice was quiet, but clear. "I have come as myself, without expectation, without demand. I offer no promise and ask for none. I only ask you to speak your truth before all." Jake felt the weight of her words heavier than any order he had ever received. He looked at her, then at the people gathered around, then, finally at the sky. Above, as if hoping it would offer him a sign, he stepped forward slowly, his voice unsure at first. I came to this planet to fix things, to build towers, to check wires. I never thought I'd be standing here caught between one sentence and a whole future. He paused, breathing deeply. I said you looked nice, because I meant it. I didn't know what it would mean to you, but I don't regret saying I. They looked at Lura, her eyes focused only on him, not blinking, not moving. You showed me a world I never knew, a culture I barely understand, but in that you also showed me something else. Kindness, patience, the strength to wait without pushing. The field remained